You always sort of keep this buffer in the future.
Keep the buffer in the future. That way, when I get down to my last 2 or 3 months, I've generally got my cost plus 25, 30% profit left over at the end.
Okay.
So that way I get to reap the benefits. I've paid my bills, I've paid my men, I've paid my equipment, I've paid my fuel, made a little bit of money throughout this project, and then at the end, I get this one big balloon payment because I have staggered my payments enough to where I've got a good sum of money left over at the end of the job.
All right. How about it?
Yeah.
Hello, America, and thank you for joining the ProfitDig Construction Show. My name's Chris Work. I'm here with my partners Jeff Givens, Jeff Spencer.
What's up?
And our partner and producer Jerry Work.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Wait, I'm turning my mic on.
Oh,
Hello.
hello. Thought you were about to jump into some Johnny Cash there for a second,
Yeah.
but no, that's okay.
I hear that train.
Well, listen, make sure to follow us. You can find us on YouTube and all other major social channels. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. We have all sorts of things to cover here, but certainly if there's anything specific you would like to discuss, then we certainly want to make sure we do that. Welcome, boys.
Welcome. Pop the top again.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I think it sort of sets the tone.
Yeah, I thought the intro would be a good time to
Yeah, absolutely.
pull a tab on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we were having a discussion just a few moments ago, and Jeff, you had some insight on overbilling.
Yes.
And how you might combat that, I presume.
Well, in like past experience, one thing that's always come to haunt us is you get overzealous starting a new project. You get your store materials, you mobilize, you want to bill for that, and you're like, well, it may be a little half a month, longer getting started than what we thought. Let's go ahead and bill a little bit extra and, kind of have a good pad to start with. Mm-hmm. Well, it's all fine and good, but what happens is throughout the project, if it's a 5, 6, 7, 8 month project, when the end there's, you've already billed for the majority of your money. So you get down to the last 2 or 3 months, and it's like, I can't bill as much as I need to because I overbilled up front. And so now here I am, I'm spending all this money paying labor and equipment and, some materials to get this job finished and put in that I'm not going to get revamped for because I billed up front.
Right. Well, now, what difference would that be by billing too much up front versus a final billing at the end if I had properly managed my finances throughout the project? Or are you saying it's just more difficult to do that?
Well, it's not more difficult. Because you build that money up front, but instead of taking that extra money and dedicating it to this job, like put in an escrow account or something, you've used that to fund other projects, or you've used that to pay, past due bills.
Okay.
You've used that money up. So now you're primarily working for free because you've already pre-billed this and got compensated for it, and you have nothing to show for it. So one thing that I've tried to do in the past, over the last several years, I try to be kind of conservative. I look at my cost for this month, materials, labor, and equipment. I bill exactly what that cost is plus 5%.
Okay, so you always sort of keep this buffer in the future.
Keep the buffer in the future. That way, when I get down to my last 2 or 3 months, I've generally got my cost plus 25, 30% profit left over at the end.
Okay.
So that way I get to reap the benefits. I've paid my bills, I've paid my men, I've paid my equipment, I've paid my fuel, made a little bit of money throughout this project, and then at the end, I get this one big balloon payment because I have staggered my payments enough to where I've got a good sum of money left over at the end of the job. When I got to go back and do punch list items, I've got to, adjust hydrants, backfill behind the curb, whatever I've got to do, I've got money in there to compensate for that with a really, really good profit margin.
And so it sounds to me too like that was sort of by overbilling, you're essentially muddying the books along the way.
Exactly.
So it makes it harder to know where you're profitable or not.
Yes.
And how to adjust that moving forward.
But when you get in that mindset, that you're doing that on a regular basis, then that tells me that that's when you need something like ProfitDig to help you manage your books, because you may not have enough money in your project to be profitable from from point A to point B, from start to finish.
Yeah.
And so if you're upside down off the start to where you're having to overbill up front to pay your bills, that's when you really need to look at, how you got your business structured and figure out, hey, what do I need to do to change this? And what kind of application do I need to help me to keep guidelines on it?
Sure. And odds are it's not the first time you've done that.
Right.
To be in that position.
Exactly.
Yeah. Constantly playing catch up.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the only point I was making in our previous discussion was, need to be cautious. And the worst feeling in the world is to get down to the last couple of months of a job and you build for, 95% of it.
Yeah.
And you don't have any money left, so you're paying out of your pocket right now because you have overbilled and overspent.
Yeah. Mismanaged stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
Yes. That's how I got to this point. That's where, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not a good experience,
Was that something you did earlier in your career?
It was something I did later in my career to try to offset desperate times.
Okay.
You were robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ended up chasing your tail.
Was that pressure from your management coming down, or was that just a personal pressure you put on yourself?
Well, it was a timing issue. It was like we'd done good up to a certain point, and then the economy crashed, 2009.
Oh yeah, bottom fell out.
Yeah, bottom fell
Yeah.
out. And so you start grasping at straws. And so we start overbilling, trying to make things work. And then, before you know it, the guy you're working for files bankruptcy and leaves you hanging. And, you're spent $1 million+ of your money, trying to fund his projects that he's not paying for. Mm-hmm. So you overbill, try to compensate. And when he doesn't have the money to pay, it don't matter how much you overbill. If you're not getting the money, it don't do any good.
Yeah.
Which that ties into the idea of making sure that you're not so dependent on a single
Yes.
source of income.
As my dad said, that's where we messed up, was putting all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, did your bond help you protect against that?
This was private work, so they had to be bonded.
Is there ever an opportunity where for private work you can bond it? Even
Well, there is, but it's mostly on the GC or the owner. He may request a bond to make sure he's secured, but most time you as a contractor or subcontractor, you want to stay out of bonding as much as possible because it's extra cost.
it is, but it's all similar to insurance, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, of course it's going to cost you more from your margin.
But
if you were to be in some type of event where the person who's hired you goes bankrupt, like it could have a domino effect for all the subcontractors they've hired out. But if you happen to have insurance or bond, protect yourself in that situation. Is that the right approach?
But you as the owner, me as a contractor, if you're not willing to request a bond or want a bond, then there's no way I can force you to do that. And so there's no benefit for me to have a bond against myself. And I can have a bond against you if you're not willing to bond the project.
Is there an insurance type of product that...
It's a bond. That's it. That's your insurance.
But I'm saying that would protect you as a subcontractor.
You have a bid bond, which is initiated by the owner, and that's like if you default on your bid, it goes to the next lowest bidder, and then you've got to pay the difference. That's where your insurance company comes in. It's all insurance. And then you have a payment and performance bond. So if you award me the project, and then I default after starting the project, then you as the owner are guaranteed that you're going to get your money, you're going to get a project, and whatever it costs you, in addition, my bond is going to pay for that. But me as a subcontractor, I can't really request a bond because that's going to cost me the job. The owner's like, I'm the one that has to be protected.
So there's nothing that works the opposite way that protects you from the GC going down.
So that's more maybe a word of caution as a subcontractor is if you have the opportunity, be selective on jobs that have bonds.
Yeah, and it's like, anytime there's a bond share, like a GC maybe bidding a project and you're a subcontractor on that GC, and they're going to ask you your bond rate, whether it be, 0.92% or 1.3%, whatever it may be, depending on the magnitude of the monetary amount, then if you include that in there, that you're protected in that bond. And, the owner also is protecting that bond because you've paid X amount of dollars. But what it boils down to is like you as a GC, you as a sub, if you don't perform, that bond that you've paid only protects the owner, saying that, hey, I can get someone else to come in, finish your work, and whatever it costs me extra, your bonding company's going to pay for it. So there's really not a whole lot of protection there for, when someone says they're licensed and bonded means that I'm guaranteeing you, if you hire me, if I screw up or back out, you're going to get your work done. Whatever it costs you, my insurance company is going to pay the difference.
So Jeff, that was a big thing that got your company in trouble years ago, your dependence on the single client. Looking back, what could you have done differently to somewhat mitigate that risk from the single source of?
Well, to be able to defer and say, I'm going to bid work to you, but I've also got to focus on other clients. I've got to bid work to them as well. We did not do that. This one particular guy was giving us so much work, and it's like every time we gave him a bid, he'd call us like, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And we got to where, we had actually added more crews. We were subbing out more work. And we got to the point to where, we did not have enough people, even with our subs, to do the work we had. We were doubling in size every year. Done that for 8 years straight. Well, about 6 years straight.
And it's not like the GC you were working with said, I'm going to go file bankruptcy. That wasn't his plan either.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah,
but he never gave us a heads up.
Right. No.
He kept giving us work
when
to
you had
bid.
that type of relationship.
We even got to the point to where, if we gave him an invoice for that month, he was paying like 30 to 50% of that invoice. And then he'd have excuses like, hey, I had to pay for this, I had to pay for that. I'm going to catch you up on this next project or, later down the road. We had so much work with him, like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, next month, same thing.
And it was good for a long time, so you had no reason to suspect that.
Right.
But that's another clue then. If you're in that situation and suddenly payments are not turning out quite right,
as regular as they
that
should
could be a
sure.
sign that there's trouble ahead.
Exactly.
You look for patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good information, Jeff. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I hope it's a learning lesson for all of our viewers. Anyone like to leave us with some words of wisdom this evening?
Well, I hear that train coming.
I hope it's not the GC that's on it going lots of
GC's off the train.
That's right. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Here at ProfitDig. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.